Joining us today is Nigel Barker, an internationally renowned photographer, TV personality, and a proud Gallup champion. Nigel has used his platforms to support critical causes and elevate the conversation around gender justice through his art and storytelling.
And I'm really excited to be interviewing Nigel today. Please join us in welcoming Nigel Barker for this fantastic conversation.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Lovely to meet you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nigel. So my first question to you is that you've done amazing work in activism, and as someone who has used photography and storytelling to shine a light on important social issues, I've seen firsthand how art can drive conversations and inspire action. From your perspective, how do you think storytelling, whether through documentaries or other mediums, can advance the conversation around gender justice?
I mean, I think first of all, it's all about storytelling, right? I mean, how we hear things, how we process things, no matter where we are in the world, it's about the story behind it. And one of the great things about being a photographer and a filmmaker is that you allow, in many ways, through storytelling visually, the audience to make up their mind themselves. You can tell somebody what you think. You can tell somebody what they should think. You can wax poetic, if you like, on almost any subject and make it sound incredible or make it sound depressing or make it sound important. But they're words, and you don't know whether someone has an agenda when they say those words. But when you film something in real time, when you show the story, the real life, what's happening in real time, it's incredibly impactful. And I've used this technique across all kinds of issues and causes. And I mean, for example, as diverse as going to Canada and filming the seal hunt, which is an annual cull of harp seals, where people were accusing the Humane Society, for example, of capturing imagery that was sort of archive footage that wasn't happening today. I was able to go there and say, no, here I am right now, timestamp it and show what was happening. Likewise, I've done the same similar sort of things where I've gone around the world to small villages in sub-Saharan Africa and reported on, gender equality and shown, female leaders, young women who are walking from their villages for 10 miles every morning in very difficult situations to then give help as a volunteer in a hospital environment to help, safely deliver babies, for example. And, and when you show what people are doing, and people can realize that this is actually happening and that it isn't just someone saying this. Oh, really? They work for 10 miles. Oh, really? It's that difficult. Oh, really? This is what the situation is like. And they see it. They visually see the story and they hear from that person's mouth, their own words. And all of a sudden, not just do you feel for that individual, but one of the things I find most striking is that people are able to identify that actually we're not that different, that someone's situation in a very kind of difficult sort of world, perhaps, actually has the same emotions, feelings, and things that you go through, say, in say the United States. And I think that oftentimes people think, obviously we're very lucky and it's very different, but we're not that different as people. And therefore what hurts one person hurts another. And what empowers one person empowers another. And so that strength of unity, and I think storytelling and the ability to capture this sort of thing through photography, videography, has been for me one of the most extraordinary things that I can do to help create change and to help wake people up the world over.
Thank you so much for that, Nigel. I definitely, it's so fascinating to know how you use your photography to shine light on the truth. And I absolutely love what you said about how even though we're all living in different situations, at the end of the day, we're all humans and the human feelings connect us to each other. That was amazing. And my second question is that connecting it to the storytelling, I know that you've used storytelling to drive change through your photography. And having had such a long career capturing powerful moments, what advice would you give to young activists like us who want to use art, whether it's photography, film, or other mediums, to amplify their advocacy for gender justice?
I mean, first of all, yes, please. Please do it. Please get out there. We're all armed with, phones and things these days, all of which have cameras on them. So there are now more than ever more people armed with the ability to storytell and capture imagery and in real time than ever before. There's over 1 billion people with a camera on their phone, right? So there's a lot of ways that we can start to tell these stories, and we're seeing it already. I mean, this is happening. This is actually happening, and it's very powerful. I mean, social media is an incredibly powerful tool that you can see in real time what's happening. People can communicate to a huge web of people all over the world, get messages out there, and make change. But I also say to people that oftentimes we struggle with we struggle with the confidence. We may struggle with the thing that we don't think we're worth it, or that we can do it, or that we're good enough to do it. And certainly, obviously, someone may look at me and say, well, you're very lucky because you are a professional photographer and you are well known from your work, and therefore it's different for you when you do something, people listen or what have you. But I always say that the most important work that I've ever done, it isn't working on America's Next Top Model, it isn't working in television, the fashion, and it's very exciting to do that. But actually, what has made me the proudest, what has made me, given me that ability to really stand up tall and know that I'm doing something right, is when I take photographs and video and film that move people to advocate, to volunteer, that changes legislation. People, I've taken photographs and shown people things that they didn't believe was possible, taken it to Congress, taken it to the Senate, shown people, put it on social media, sent it out, to DMing it to people, to get reactions, to get people to be, wow, we've got to do something about this, both positive and negative. And by the way, it doesn't have to be sort of reactionary, right? The way I try to deal with things is actually a celebration. Now, there's a lot to feel negative about in this world, unfortunately. There's a lot of depression, there's a lot of things which are hard and tough, but there's also a lot of incredible, powerful, wonderful stories. And I specifically have gone out there to celebrate the women and powerful female leaders in my life, in the world in general. In fact, earlier this year, I went to Sierra Leone with CARE, a wonderful organization with incredible activations all over the world, to create a campaign called She Leads the World, highlighting female leaders. And it was an incredible, I interviewed everyone from the First Lady of Sierra Leone all the way down to young women outside in the jungle, literally hours and hours out of Freetown in Sierra Leone, who you would never expect to see myself and my team talking to them. They had to have 2 different translators to get through to them. But the messages and what they were telling us and how they were living their lives, what they were doing, how if you empower, a young woman and a young lady or a mother in a community to run a business, how that can change the family, how that can change the whole community, how that can change everyone, in the sort of circumference of where they live, and totally change their lives. Because by empowering women, you empower everyone in the community, to show that though in real time, what it was like before, what it was like now, who they're employing. For me, it was just that those sorts of things. As a filmmaker, I'm like, get out there, everybody, and show these stories. Find a story near you, find a story in a village, a town, and it doesn't matter if you live in a big city or if you live somewhere in the middle of nowhere. There are stories everywhere. Everyone has a story, and it's incredibly important that we show every story. Only that way can we unite us all together.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that with us, Nigel. I think it's absolutely amazing how you shared your experience with doing this She Leads the World campaign, and how you kind of, highlighted different types of leaders in a community. and in the world. That's just amazing. And what you said about social media, I think will make sense to a lot of us, because a lot of us started our journeys of storytelling through social media. And I think it's amazing how you kind of highlighted how everyone here has a story. Speaking of advocacy, I know you've worked on many global campaigns. How do you think we can create a more connected and unified global movement for gender justice, fostering stronger connections across borders?
Great question. And I think probably, for me, and I would imagine everyone who's watching today, they haven't seen too many middle-aged men with bald heads talking on this out there right now. And that is part of the problem, okay, is the fact that there aren't enough men speaking up, and not just girl upping, but man upping. And I'm like, guys, this equation takes us all. If we're going to have real change the world over, it starts with involving all of us. This is not a female women's issue or problem. This is all of our problem. This is a humanity problem. And we all need to deal with this. Gender equality and equality itself has to do with us all being treated equally. Of course, we're all different. Of course, some are stronger than others, some are weaker than others, some are faster than others, some are slower than others. That is the world. But that doesn't make us better than the other. That doesn't make us more important than the other. And that doesn't make us more deserving than the other. And I think that's the piece of this where, I feel that we need to, and my mission has been since day one, because when I first got involved with Girl Up, it was many years ago, 15 years ago, where, the birth of my daughter, Jasmine, and I looked at Jasmine and I thought, my goodness, she's not going to get the same treatment as my son, Jack, who was a few years older than her. And I thought that's outrageous and ridiculous. And it hadn't really dawned on me before that point that as a young man, that was really going to happen. And I'm like, well, I need to do something about that. I need to spend the rest of my life, or whatever it's going to take, to change that dynamic, that paradigm, so that she grows up knowing that her worth is exactly the same as my son's, and that she is, has the opportunity to do everything that my son does, and that they are equal out there. Not to say one might do better than the other. That's not the thing here, people. The question here is the fact that we give people opportunity and a chance, and that we love one another and we respect one another equally. And it's very simple. It doesn't matter what religion we're from, what country we're from, what color we are. All of these things, what I'm saying rings true with all of them. And so for me, we have to kind of forget about borders. We have to forget about state lines, country lines, these things that separate us, and think about the things that unite us as human beings. And as human beings, we all understand love. We all understand family. You can be in Afghanistan, you can be in the United States, you can be in France, you can be in China. Families are families, and we love our mothers, we love our grandmothers, we love the women in our families. For some reason, we grow up and there's a paradigm shift. And we have to educate the young men everywhere to grow up with an understanding that it's actually only to truly be a man is actually to understand that you stand side by side with the women in your life, not in front, but side by side.
Wow, that was just amazing, Nigel. Thank you so much for that. I particularly loved what you said about how there should be no borders. Forget about borders, how we all just come together and act as one and be united. So I think that kind of wraps up the questions I had for you. So if you have any closing remarks or any closing advice for us, you can just go ahead with that. And yeah.
Of course, thank you very much. I appreciate the interview and the chance to speak up. As I mentioned, I've been doing this since my daughter's birth, 15 years, which is pretty much the lifespan of Girl Up itself. When I first got involved with Girl Up, it was an initiative by the United Nations Women. And at that time, I said, this shouldn't be a United Nations Women issue. This should be a United Nations issue. Gender equality, female rights, are not a female women's issue. They are a human issue. And we have to start talking about it in that way. We need to invite men and boys into the conversation as much as possible. And it is for us all to girl up. And we all need to be feminists, because to be a feminist really means to understand what being fair and honest and respectful for all is. And, you know, for that, I just say, you know, I hope that every time I come back, I will see more faces and more men's faces in this conversation. As only that way are we going to really change things up. And and all the women who are on this, who are listening in here now, to speak to their parents, their fathers, their brothers, their friends who are men, and invite them in to girl up clubs, to have them a part of the conversation. If, despite how difficult it might be or frustrating it might be, we have to start, and it's up to you to help us all along. So good luck, and know that you have me as at least one out there struggling along to make a difference. But there are many of us, many extraordinary, wonderful people who are willing to do whatever it takes and sacrifice whatever it takes to make this world a better place. I know that you are one of them. So thank you.